Okay, take two. So, haven't got any better. Still the same. The music's not playing, but I still screwed up the beginning. Hi, this is your next operating system. So, to produce content, right, I got to have a way to produce content. I'm going to start doing a lot of shorts. So, the format that you normally have on your desktop is landscape. I need portrait, so I've used a laptop. And I have it hooked to an external monitor that's in portrait mode, so I can kind of make videos of the desktop that will kind of fit for shorts. Still going to do these long-term landscape videos, but I want to do some more shorts. So what operating systems am I going to work with? Right now I'm going to focus on Linux, and I'm going to focus on CachyOS, Linux, Mint Linux, Void Linux, and openSUSE Tumbleweed. 3 of those are rolling releases. And so one of the main things that I'm trying to accomplish in this is to be able to show you how to do different things in different operating systems. Don't necessarily have to prove that you can do it in this one. Already done that. I got a bunch of videos on my other channel that I went over that basically you got to find out what are you using Linux for. The hard part of this is I'm not doing this on virtual machines. I'm installing all of these on one laptop in the different partitions. Makes it a little bit harder. I'm not installing them all into one partition. That would be a little bit messy. So I'm really running into a lot of challenges working on the bootloader, which in turn means I'm going to know how to use the bootloader a lot more. So that's one of the things. Why did I pick Void Linux? That's Linux that's completely different. It's not based off a tree of anything else. It's its own tree. CachyOS is off of Arch. That's more of that. Sorry, that's that video. Mint Linux is based on Ubuntu, which is based on Debian, so I don't need to do that. openSUSE is another rolling release, this Tumbleweed. That's kind of one of the main branches. The only thing I probably need to add is a Fedora. I was going to do Nabara, but maybe I should just do normal Fedora. I'm going to probably add some type of Fedora flavor later. And so I want to give you shorts, but one of the things that I want to do that would be a really great thing to show you is the following, is how I managed to make this bootloader. I use Refined. How did I manage to make that all work? So when you're doing some of these channels, it's not so easy. So instead of doing all this work behind, like why did I do this during the last 2 weeks? Because you're going to want to see this, right? And you're going to want to hear my troubles going through it and not. It's not working how I want it, right? And this is kind of an idea of what you're going to get. You're going to be able to get a long screen like that. And then what I can do is show you a close-up of the screen of what it looks like. But for a short, I can show everything right there. I got to make the fonts bigger and all that kind of stuff. So in this process, like I said, well, what's the best way to do short format videos? Well, you could, and I want to do something where this is going to probably be the easiest way. I just got to make it so you can read everything on the screen. That also means I got to change the title, and you can see I got my little logo going there now where it spins around. It's dumb how I had to make that work. It's really dumb. But that's part of all this, that I can help explain all this. At the end of the day, you want to be able to just do your basic stuff, and Linux is going to help you do all that. And like I mentioned before, Linux isn't going to track you. Everything tracks you because it has to know who you are. So if you had like a support call, you can send that data. The difference is there's no go home to Linux to like a major Linux, the corporation of Linux, like Microsoft and like Apple and like Google or Alphabet. So it's kind of a difference, and then you're going to see how this difference later in this same video, you're going to see how this difference manifests itself. So like I alluded to, I've had to be in the bootloader quite a bit. And the problem is this, just like with Windows, when you're trying to dual boot with Windows, Windows has to be in control of the bootloader. And so when you're installing Linux, on a dual boot with Windows, they always say install Windows first, and Linux is smart enough to work around it. Linux has a bootloader called GRUB. I use one called Refind. There's other bootloaders, but those are the main two. I like Refind because it has some features that we'll go into as when we get into openSUSE Tumbleweed, where you'll see the benefit of that, although I'm not seeing it right now, YouTube. And so I've had to fight a lot with the bootloader. So I installed CachyOS, then I installed Linux Mint. When Mint installs its GRUB bootloader, it uses the icon for Ubuntu because it's based on Ubuntu. So in Refind, I can see a CachyOS or icon for CachyOS. I can see this Ubuntu icon, and I can select either one of those to start the OS. But it's not so easy. When I loaded openSUSE, that's the logo for Refind. When I loaded openSUSE, it worked at first, but the last distro I loaded was Void, and I didn't install the bootloader. I'm going to do that after because. And so now I got a lot of work to do to make it up. So I can't show you all of that today. And that's why some of that format is for shorts, where I can give you a little glimpse of that and how to do that. Because it's interesting, the commands. It's pretty easy to see what your bootloader is, and it's pretty easy to trim that. By the way, I tried a thing called Ventoy, which is a thing that you put on your USB stick, and it's kind of like you can just load the ISO onto it and then just put the USB stick. You don't have to, use something like Rufus to write onto it. Didn't work for me. So at a certain point, I'll try to go back to that. But I'm like high speed, low drag. If it doesn't work, I'm not going to do it. Void has never worked for me yet. I haven't got it to work in a setting with something else. I'm sure it would work if I did it by itself. But its installer is old term. So when you get the USB, you put it in, it boots into a terminal screen. And then you have like the old school 2000 Linux where you're just, click here, click here, click here, click here. Formatting was a pain in the ass, but I think I got it all done. And now I don't have a bootloader, so I got to go back into Refind and tell it to go here, here, and here. So that's what I'm trying to do. I'm learning tons about bootloader. Look at me learning as an old codger. So I'm hoping to have that. Hopefully by Friday that will be done. We're going to talk about a couple other things. I did mention this about Microsoft, Azure Linux, and why we shouldn't be scared of it. This is actually fighting over the bootloader. Please indulge me in making these stupid videos. So, Microsoft made, I think in 2022, 6% of their income was from Windows, and now it's down to 4% in 2024. And this is kind of a crappy chart showing you that. So they don't make their money off of Windows, so Windows Desktop. They make their money off services to corporations. When I worked for a company, we had gotten rid of buying Microsoft licenses, and we just had everything downloaded. So we bought like a seat that included Office and everything and got that. It was okay for a while, but it ended up being not so good. And then we had a reseller that did it, and they weren't that good. In some cases, it can be good, but at the end of the day, you don't have anyone you can say, so-and-so, get over here, right? You don't have anyone. You're calling someone, and they're not working, and. And it's a service. It's not a thing anymore. So that's the Microsoft bit to make up. And the last thing, and my other channel, I talked about House Bill 1043 in California, and they would put an age requirement on OSs, and everyone would have their knickers in a bunch. And that now has been amended to this new bill in California, 1856, which gets rid of it for Linux. But there's a couple cases, and the one is like Steam. SteamOS is based on Arch, but Steam is making money. So I think the delineation, which I'm okay with, if you're on Steam, you should have to give your age, because you should have to have a credit card. You have a credit card, you have to have age or some way to buy it, or your parents have to put money in there. So again, I don't care that much about when you're paying for stuff. That's just me. But it's sorted itself out because this is a great community. This is me. Thanks for stopping by, YouTube. This is your next OS. Bye, YouTube.